What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Kickin' with Kelly podcast. We are back. It's been a while, I know, but here we are. Today we're going to be talking about a two-part episode. What's next for the Houston Texans? Today we're going to be talking about the offseason, the moves they made, the hiring of D'Amico Ryans, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson Jr., all of it. And then later on, when the season's over, we're going to recap the season and see what's next for them. Let's go. And of course, it should be noted that the information in this podcast have been taken from various news reports, ESPN, Sports Illustrated, also Kyle Brandt and Ian Rappaport. Are you ready? Let's go. Alright, before we begin the episode, let's address the elephant in the room. And it is obvious. It's been nearly 7 months since I released the first episode of my podcast. And there was a huge pause in production. We are back now, but let's address this. So, April was a very busy month for sports. And I was just like, there's no way I can make an episode while all of this is going on because stuff was happening every day, sometimes multiple parts a day that were huge in the world of the NFL and, college football in that of the combine. So, that was kind of in March, late March, early April. So there was the draft, undrafted free agency as well, free agency, trades, and then you get to May and June, and that's busy for softball. You got the regionals, super regionals, the World Series, and the championship. Oh yeah, we're going to be talking about this in a later episode. But then there are other things, personal things. There was grief. There was a little accident last month. I'm alright. And then started college again, and we got a puppy. So things have been a little crazy out here. But we're here, and we're rolling. So let's get into the episode. There's been a lot that has gone on for the Houston Texans in the last 3 years. All 3 years were losing seasons with 3 different head coaches, all of which were fired. Those coaches are Bill O'Brien, David Culley, and Lovie Smith. There was also the heartbreaking but understandable news of J.J. Watt moving on from the Houston Texans to go to Arizona. 2020 was his last year as a Texan, but didn't end up retiring in 2022. But there's going to be more on that in another episode. And a topic we will not be discussing at all, period, on this episode, or at all on this podcast, is the Deshaun Watson situation. Houston clearly went into rebuilding mode. And as a fan, that's hard to accept and hard to endure. But in a press conference, not in Houston, he was doing it from Arizona, but through the Houston Texans, JJ said that you have to get through adversity to get to the times like these. And he's right. And at the day that the Texans win a Super Bowl, it's all going to be worth it. But we're not going to be talking about all that right now. That's going to be a later episode. Bill O'Brien wasn't it. There were so many things wrong with that. However, credit must be given to where it's due. He did lead us to the playoffs. as far as the divisional round and have a few AFC South championships to thank him for. So credit there. But he wasn't the one making the plays. He had a predictable play calling scheme, and that's run, run, pass, punt. Or if a first down, repeat it. He didn't want to just be a head coach. He wanted to be the offensive play caller and the GM. And as Texans fans, and really most NFL fans know, he traded our star receiver, as some people say, for a bag of chips and a Coke. So, yeah, that didn't work out too well. But, he also said in his press conferences after a loss, it starts with me. Gotta do a better job. Gotta look at the tape. It's hard to win in the NFL. But there really wasn't action. When are you going to do something to show that you're doing a better job? Because it's the same thing that we hear week after week. And finally, he got fired. David Culley wasn't it either. He was a really nice guy who cared about the fans, but just wasn't the right fit. Lovey did great things for our defense, but as a head coach, it just wasn't the right man for the job. Fans were obviously unhappy. NRG was empty for the most part. I mean, you could see that in the games, and not just because of COVID. This is after COVID, too. Season ticket holders were protesting / selling their tickets. And then you got training camp, and this is something I can personally relate to. We always try to go to the Texans training camp every year. We kind of call it a family tradition. The first one we went to in 2015, you claimed the tickets, but everyone after that was a raffle. We had one for all three of us in 2021 and ended up with 2 tickets each, so 6 total. That tells you something, because they used to be hard to get. JJ Watt there and all of this. But that was in the past. And it was fairly empty. There was hardly anyone there. So, to make a team in rebuild mode a contender, there are many, many, many boxes that have to be checked. And they, so far, have been done beautifully. So, that first check mark is hiring a coach. You want to get a franchise guy. You want to get a guy who's well respected among players, among fans, among the coaches, and among the organization. You want a guy who doesn't just say that he wants to bring championships to the team. He takes action, doing everything imaginable and working with everyone to do that. And you want somebody who's successful in their roles. And in my opinion, DeMeco Ryans is the perfect hire. You could not hire any better person than him. Now, if you're not sure who he is, he was the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, who had the best defense in the league last year, by the way. And DeMeco played in the league in the early years of the franchise. And he was a linebacker, wore the number 59. So originally, according to reports, and that gets a little misconstrued, but DeMeco was quote unquote originally not interested in coming to Houston, but the fans wanted him so bad. But later on, DeMeco agreed to have an interview, but it had to be on Zoom because San Francisco was in the playoffs. And you can look up the NFL interview process. It's very, very strict. So then he had a second interview and he was hired. In the welcoming press conference for D'Amico, Nick said that he and Cal asked him if there was anything else he wanted to say to them before leaving that interview. And D'Amico said, "This is my dream job." And when D'Amico arrived in Houston, there was a red carpet that was laid out at the entrance, along with a huge number of current and former Houston Texans players. On the place where the stairs led above the entrance was Mark Vandermeer and Drew Doherty and media people applauding him when walking into a building. This was different than any other time a coach has been hired. It is clear that every single person was excited about this hire. And next, after you get your coach, you want him to build a staff around him that is elite, that is full of successful people, successful coaches, people that work great with the players. And D'Amico did that. They needed to do a little cleaning in the front office, and they did. Another key is listening to the fans. That changed. They came up with something called a fan council. And had you not had to report to downtown at NRG, I definitely would have done it. So that stung a little, because you did. The fan council works with the leaders of the teams to give ideas and feedback to help improve the organization's future. That's major. That is a huge change from where we were before. And then obviously, the fans really wanted D'Amico Ryans, and they were vocal about it. To the point where the organization couldn't not hear it. And then something exciting coming up next season are new uniforms for the first time since the Color Rush. But technically, Color Rush was just one set of uniforms. This is completely new home and completely new away uniforms. So that's really exciting. And then we come to free agency frenzy. Texans were busy during this period. I don't have the whole list, but I made a list of those that kind of stood out to me. So we got Case Keenum, which is a quarterback from Buffalo. Got Denzel Perryman, which is a linebacker from the Raiders. Sheldon Rankins, a defensive tackle from New York Jets. Dalton Schultz from Dallas. He is a tight end. Devin Singletary. This is one of the ones that I was stoked about. Having Damian Pierce and Devin Singletary in the backfield, that's pretty incredible. So, if you couldn't guess, he's a running back. Then you have Chase Winovich, a defensive end from Cleveland. He actually just retired from football this year. Jimmy Ward is another one of my favorite additions to the team. He is a safety from San Francisco. And Robert Woods. I like this move as well. The wide receiver from Tennessee. And as all teams do, they had to clear up the cap space. And actually, the Texans reigned as one of the most available cap space as a team. So that kind of makes it more appealing to get staff or coaches or employees or whatever for that. They also re-signed LT, aka Laramie Tunsil. They re-signed Tavir Thomas, Derek Rovers, John Weeks, Scott Quessenberry, and MJ Stewart. And then we get to the draft. So setting this up a little bit, Houston had the number 1 pick, and coming down to the final game of the season, they needed to lose the game to lock it in. But they won, and Chicago got the number 1 pick with their loss. So before any trades, Houston had 12 draft picks. They had 2 in the first, 1 in the second, 2 in the third, 1 in the fourth, 1 in the fifth, 3 in the sixth, and 2 in the seventh, which actually, the second one in the 7th round was the last pick of the draft. And then D'Amico and Nick started cooking. Going in, the media was just huge on speculation. Texans were quiet, and for good reason. They did not want to relay any information out. And that's a smart strategy. Because as seen with this happened, this year, it turned out good. But hang on now. We're still building up to the draft here. So there was a huge trade that happened days before. Chicago and Carolina made a trade that included the first overall pick. On the first day of the draft, an analyst, I think is Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football, said that he honestly had no idea who they were going to pick. That's pretty crazy. And it worked out pretty well. Funny little anecdote here for y'all. I watch the draft every year. My mom and I both, we watch the draft and the combine. Aside from my mom not being there, the place I was watching it was less than ideal. I was in a hospital bed in the emergency room. So, yeah, I'm just fine, okay? But I had an infection. I don't think it was in the tooth. I don't remember exactly what the situation was. But it was in my mouth, and in relation to the dental work I was getting done. And it made my face swell up really big to the point of starting to close my eye. Of course, we rushed to we called the emergency dentist, all of that. We got that taken care of. But sometime later, it started happening again. Or it happened again, I should say. We think this was more of an allergic reaction because the side of my face, which included, the lips, and the lips were swollen. So it had to have been something that I ate or something else. But we don't know what that was or what that would be. I was waiting to be taken to have a CT scan on my mouth just to check everything in there. And the rest of my face, I guess I could say. And Carolina was on the clock, okay? And, I saw it happen. Bryce Young to the Carolina Panthers. And I was expecting that to happen, but I was hoping for some kind of twist that they'd get CJ Stroud. Now, hang on a minute, because ignore the barking. Ignore the barking, I'm sorry. He has no courtesy for recordings or prayers or anything like that. So, we were on the clock. I was honestly so stressed out. I looked over at my dad and I said, watch, because they're going to come in right before they pick. And I don't want to miss it. I'm going to ask them to wait. We had the second pick of the draft. I mean, how long could that take, right? Well, sure enough, the pick was in. And in comes my nurse, and she was trying to give me a steroid through my IV. And then the other nurse came in for me to go have my CT scan. And I said, can you wait like 5 minutes? And nurse said to the other nurse to wait and come back because she was trying to set everything up. I was like, oh, okay. But this nurse was going back and forth around the bed, and her head kept getting in the way of the TV. I was tuning stuff out. I was like, yep, Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yep. Mm-hmm. So finally, okay, the commissioner came up and said, with the second pick in the NFL draft, the Houston Texans select CJ Stroud. I'm gonna be honest. I was not sold on CJ. I wasn't. I wanted Bryce. I just wasn't a fan of his. Uh, I don't know if it's the Ohio State kind of thing or what, but obviously things have changed about CJ since then. There's no question in that. I absolutely love the guy. He's a great person. He's so kind. He took every possible minute he had to try to sign every autograph that he could at the training camp this year. And it was actually shown in a video of the PR trying to pull him away and get him to go, and he was still signing. So great person, great guy. We'll talk about him more in a later episode. So I went on to my CT scan, and when I came back, I got my phone to look on the Texans Instagram announcing CJ officially on there. And I like to read comments on posts. I don't know about you guys. I don't know why I like to do it. Maybe it's just a habit or something. Now I won't do it on every post, obviously. That doesn't have to be said. I saw this comment and it said, "Great pick. I like the aggressiveness to get Will too." My heart sunk and it raced. Oxymoron there, but I'm just telling y'all, I can't describe it other than that. I went searching. I mean, I don't think my fingers have ever typed so fast as they did right then to to see if this is actually true, and I could not believe my eyes when I saw it. It was, in my opinion, right here that turned the Houston Texans franchise around and won the fans back. I think Will Anderson was probably the best defensive player in the draft, and the fact that the Texans got him was incredible. I mean, nothing short of that. So they traded with Arizona, and here's how the trade went down. So Texans received the 105 pick along with that number 3 overall pick. And Arizona received number 12, number 33, a first in 2024, and a third in 2024. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, they gave too much. It's not. Listen, they did give a lot. I'm not going to deny that. But think about it. We have a guy on our team who is the projected defensive rookie of the year, the best player in the draft for defense. They needed somebody on edge to help Grenard out. Here it is. The reward outweighs the risk on numerous levels. Second round, they traded up to get Juice Scruggs, a center from Penn State. Traded with the Eagles, so the Texans got the 62nd pick, and the Eagles got the 65th, 188, and number 230. Then they got Tank Dell, one of the best underrated players in the draft, in my opinion. Texans got the 69th and the 161st, and the Rams got the 73rd and 191st. A total of 8 trades were made in the NFL draft this year, a franchise record. I personally loved the aggressiveness by Nick, D'Amico, and Cal, and truthfully, the future is very, very, very bright in Houston. And then the Texans made the announcement that J.J. Watt is coming home. In that same press conference that I mentioned before, he said he's not signing a one-day contract because it's just a piece of paper. The Ring of Honor is more than enough for that. And he was inducted on October 1st in the game versus the Steelers at home in Houston. So, what's next? Again, I would say that the future is very, very, very bright in Houston. Unpopular opinion, perhaps, that it's never been as bright as it is right now. We have our QB1 and excellent bodyguards. We have a rookie who is a favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year and a franchise player. We have many faces of the franchise with an A-plus coach and an A-plus GM, something that's been missing. And there is so much criticism out there and utter disrespect from the analyst. I say keep it coming, because it doesn't go unnoticed and is used as fuel. What about a Super Bowl? Yeah, absolutely. I've never felt more confidence with our chances. I don't think it will come right away, but I'm confident in this team and confident in this coaching staff. We've had great teams, but had a mediocre coach. One that tried to do everything. So I'm going to leave you with this. Houston, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a fun ride. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to my podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, please spread the word to your friends, your family, everyone you know about this podcast. It'll help it grow and help me be able to make more of these. And of course, this podcast is dedicated to my mother, who passed away on November 25th, 2022. Mama, I hope I'm making you proud.